Welcome, wherever you are. This is a silent song and other stories. And this time around, we're looking at the short story, The Sins of the Fathers by Charles Mungoshi. And this is from Zimbabwe. Silent song and other stories, The Sins of the Fathers by Charles Mungoshi. In case you came across this work accidentally, a good friend of yours referred you rather to this particular channel. How about a thumbs up? A subscription rather will do me good. And of course, a nice sharing of this particular content to especially those that you know that this work would be of great value to them. Without that much further ado, I welcome you on board. Let's join this one together and see. This time around, we're not looking at the survey, the analysis, the plot summary, but we're looking at the thematic concerns and the key aspects that come out eminently from the text, and of course, prompt questions and sample responses, which are the model responses and our sample model responses. Welcome, brace yourself, buckle up even as I'm ready to take you through this bumpy ride. About the author, Charles Mungoshi was born in 1947 and raised in a farming family in the Chivu area of Zimbabwe. After leaving school, he worked with the Forestry Commission before joining textbook sales. From 1975 to 1981, he worked at the Literature Bureau as an editor at the Zimbabwe Publishing House for the next 5 years. In 1985 to 87, he was a writer in the residence at the University of Zimbabwe. And since then, he has worked as a freelance writer, scriptwriter, and editor. Charles Mungoshi has written novels and short stories in both Shona and English, and 2 collections of children's stories. Stories from a Shona childhood and One Day Long Ago, the Baobab Books, 1989 and 1991. The former won him the Norma Award. He has also continued to write poetry and has one published collection, The Milkman Doesn't Only Deliver Milk, Baobab Books, that is 1998. He has won the Commonwealth Writers' Prize Africa region twice in the 1988 and 1999 for 2 collections of short stories, The Setting Sun and The Rolling World, Heinemann, 1997, and Walking Still, Baobab Books, 1997, 2 of his novels, Waiting for the Rainman, and Ndiko Kupindana kwa Mazuva Mambo Press, that is 1975, which received international PEN awards. What are the key episodes or sub-episodes in this particular short story here? Rondo's family in bereavement, Rondo's confusion about his personality and purpose, political tension, rivalry between Rover and Mzamane, the story of the white farmer, and Rover's haragi and end. Synopsis. The Sins of the Fathers by Charles Mungoshi is a post-colonial story set in rural Zimbabwe. It takes place between Barodal and Bulawayo. Rondo is the antagonistic character whose revenge world opens at the story's very beginning. Rondo's father, Rafa, is an ex-minister but still influential in the political world of Zimbabwe. This is evident from how a fraction of mourners just came to take pictures with him, for such photos would soon open doors for them. Rondo has a wife, Selina, daughter of Basil Mzamane, who is also into politics as an MP and a businessman. In fact, he is a political rival of Rondo's father, Rafa. Rondo's 2 children, both daughters Yuna and Rhoda, are in an accident as they are driving home from a birthday party with their grandfather, Basil Mzamane, where Rover takes to the podium to condemn his son for marrying from his enemy Basil. This has all along created bad blood between him and his son, and this accident makes Rondo believe that his father has a hand in it. In their mini stories, a revelation of what his friend Gaston alludes to. Have you ever wondered about the Second Street accidents? On their way to the birthday party, the trio, Rondo, Rover, and Basil Mzamane, meets a group of youths, Chimurenga, chanting political songs. At a point, they meet a white woman whose car has broken down and they charge to attack before Basil intervenes. Rombo disappears and Rondo remains confused about what is actually going on. Rover's speech leaves people surprised and shocked. They start going one after the other. This is where Rondo decides to send the children back with their grandfather as he remains with Selena. The two children and Basil, their grandfather, finally die in a crash. People are here to mourn. Then with utter suspense, Rondo and Selena came to finish Rover, who directed them out of the room. Then a soft muffled plop is heard from Rover's room. Thematic concerns: 1. Identity crisis. Rondo suffers low self-esteem through the way his father treats him. Rover loathes and persistently frustrates his son. His first disappointment is when his father breaks his guitar and throws it into the fire when he's only 4. Rover does not approve of or even attend his son's wedding. He purportedly leaves town on state business for 2 weeks. Through flashback, Rover trashes his son, Rondo, when he is only 8 for stealing a neighbor's mangoes. This memory gives him an uncomfortable feeling and affects his self-esteem. He must have understood what powerlessness meant. This grows into his adulthood when his father refers to him as an effeminate son who wants to demean his family by marrying into an ignominious conservative family. While Rondo admires and thinks his father is the greatest, his father, Rover, writes him off. Rover always gives Rondo a little sad laugh and labels him a slob. His colleagues laugh at him at work and Rondo doubts his mother and wife. He feels defenseless and resigns and accepts being a fool. Well, if you see me as a fool, I'll be one. Rondo has developed a stammer that makes him barely answer any of his father's questions. His wife Selena tells him that she could do better in his pants, and his friend and colleague Gaston scolds him. You can't be a child forever, Rondo. Later, Rondo's father disparages him with contempt. He inquires whether one of Rondo's more intelligent friends has written for him the piece of paper that he hands him. Both Rondo and Rover have psychological problems that need psychological support. Vengeance. The author expresses the theme of vengeance in the stories beginning through the flash forward as Rondo comes to his father with a gun. From the death of his 2 children and how his father has been treating him, he believes that he has a hand in the deaths and therefore he is here to revenge. That is found on those particular pages 29, 33, 34, and 41. Rover causes the accident as a form of revenge against the traitors or enemies. Furthermore, Rondo is not happy with what his father says about his marrying Basil, his enemy. In his speech, Rover calls his son a traitor. This is another reason for revenge. Page 38. Political bigotry and machinations. Politics run the story from the beginning to the end of the story. Basil Zamane, Rondo's father-in-law, a businessman and an MP, and Rondo's father are great political rivals that don't see eye to eye. There is always tension between the two. That is on page 34. This is the greatest reason behind the crash that kills Basil and the 2 children of Rondo to settle political scores. This is what he tells his son that he will thank him for happening now, not later. Rover loves himself so much that he prepared to destroy his son in his endeavor to have an heir. The existence of Chimurenga and the Second Street accidents are evidence of machinations, and that is supported on page 34, 36, 38, and 39 consecutively. Rover calls his enemies looters and cattle thieves personal enemies and swears that no son of the Rover family would ever play second fiddle to anyone's lead. Racism, colonial hatred. On their way to the birthday party, the trio meets a white woman who needs help. The political youths want to descend on her because she's white. On the other hand, the white woman is already armed with a gun to shoot the blacks. Again, from Zamane's story about the white who lives in the Mahinze mountains, we found out that he sends away the blacks who live there and takes their ancestral land because they are helpless. Having alienated their lands from the blacks, the whites are the source of the hatred an envy that fills Rafa clan, and Rafa has his eyes on the white farm in the Rua area. Consequently, his youth obey him rather and have an unashamed raw lust for blood. Parental resentment and child discontentment. Rondo has never been close to his father as these memories of his past make him cry. At 4, his father destroys his guitar, and at 8, he trashes him without finding out what he has done. Rondo always feels more space with his father-in-law and will choose him as his father. He carries many scars that thinking of his father as none other than a shadow that he has to live in becomes impossible. Rondo cannot think independently, and this reduces him to an object of laughter and ridicule among his friends. Rafa has no sympathy for his son as he despises him vehemently. He does not bother to answer when asked a question by his son. His mother describes her husband as one bombed out battlefield of scars, whose deepest scar is that he can't forgive not only his enemies but anyone. This clearly shows a rift in the family, and that is found on page 30 and 31. At the party, Rondo and Selena feel relaxed with their parents. Rondo could not look at his father. Love and friendship. She takes her head during the morning and night and puts it on her lap. She calls her a great woman. Friendship also evident between the two women, Selena and her mother-in-law, Rondo's wife and his mother. Selena, the daughter of Mzamane, stays with Rondo even though Rafa disapproves of their marriage. He says that his son became a traitor by marrying Selena from Basil Mzamane's clan. That is his sworn political enemies. However, Selena sticks with her husband Rondo until the end of the story. She also has a gun from the mother-in-law. He lets his head rest against her belly, his skull nagging the underside of her breast. She makes him breakfast. She compels her husband to serve revenge. This is love. Ethnic tension, negative ethnicity. Rafa believes in maintaining rigid boundaries in establishing social and political relations. In his tirade, he laments that he is hurt by the effeminate, helpless, spineless sons of the family who marry into families of their enemies, poisoning the pure blood of the Rafa clan. There has always been tension between Rafa and Mzamane, a quarrel, a misunderstanding, but the episode at the party renders it dramatic. Their speeches turn sour. The two old men are crystal clearly political nemesis. Rafa cannot forgive and forget the effects of the war. Once the Ndebele attacked them, and the pain of the scars remained in him more than the relief of healing. These adversaries contrast each other in character and demeanor. The former is the villain in his very nature, and the latter is a gentleman. He belongs to the political elite who must fund clanism and assure that they remain at the top. Primitive accumulation. There is evidence of greed in the arch nemesis Rafa, for he strives to maintain the status quo by acquiring material power through underhand deals. He leaves in the morning and returns in the evenings. He is disappointed and bitter when Mzamane rescues the white woman from Irate Chimrenga warriors. He disappears and reappears from a bush 2 minutes after the white woman has driven off. This shows that he plans to have her lynched so that he can proceed to acquire the property. Rafa is preoccupied with the sudden beauty of the land that they are driving through. The land provides a breathtaking view of its immensity. Affluence, material power, and lavish extravagance are explicit in the family as they flock around him. He gains recognition from his generosity by squandering the accumulated wealth in the form of favors, money, and advances. Many use his name to get something from legal firms, financial houses, or credit stores at month ends. Rafa desperately rather needs a grandson from Rondo to whom he can leave all his cars, houses, and money. Death. Death is also another eminent topic or idea or a concept that comes out evidently in the text. The fear of death also hangs or lingers in Selena's mind. She fears losing Rondo as well. Mysterious death strikes or rocks the family, and according to Gaston, Rondo's colleague, we know that a political hand is involved. He asks Rondo, "Do you know what your father does?" Selena's mother had died. and Mzamane marries again, but to the detriment of his daughter. She alludes to the invitation to her father. Assassinations could be the ex-minister's trade, as he happens to control the political group duped Chimurenga, which also narrowly spares the life of Mrs. Rafa. The old man had rumbles of the flashback, rather smoked out, flashed out, and blasted out. Let's talk about characters in this particular short story. We have Rafa, Rondo, Selina Mzamane, Gaston, and Mrs. Quayle. Let's start with Mr. Mzamane here. Selina's father and Rondo's father-in-law, a peacemaker and a crusader of tolerance. He takes a low profile, although he has an opportunity and ability to show off. This shows that he is peaceful and humble. According to Rondo, nothing in his demeanor shows that he is a man of opulence, as a successful businessman and the MP of a constituency in northern Motabelaland. He is also liberal that even with his differences with Rafa, he declares that he is free to think as he likes. His friendly and affable nature makes Rondo feel free around him. He is a helpful man and he gives a hand to the white woman whose car is stuck. He is tolerant, for he rescues her from being lynched by the angry youth. He tells them, "Today is cancelled, go home." He is also tolerant, for he rescues her from being lynched, or we've repeated that one, good students, where he tells them to go home. He tells Rondo to grow up and see people as individuals. Being rational makes him an embodiment of the voice of reason. Rafa, the ostentatious antagonist, so to speak, he is the arch nemesis of Basil Mzamane and his son Rondo. The villain in the story is a ruthless, intolerant, affluential former minister who cannot forgive anybody. He is contemptuous as he vilifies his son vehemently, affecting his self-esteem. The snobbish father is so selfish, for none of the words that he uses to address Rondo have any respect, and he loves himself so much, very selfish in this case, that he is prepared to destroy his son. He is proud, assertive, and aggressive as he talks of his prowess and declares no son of Rafa family would ever play second fiddle to anyone's lead. Rafa is bitter and vengeful, for his son terribly hurts him for poisoning the pure blood of the Rafa clan. As they drive to Quayle's farm, Rafa remains sullen and sucking as he can't laugh while having a robust dialogue. He is a man who laughs little. This shows that he is sadistic in nature. A calm and modest son of Rafa and husband to Selina, he is loving and caring, for he loves his mother, his wife, and his father-in-law. He is also apologetic for his father's wrongdoings, which he perceives partly responsible. He is respectful as he reveres and honors his father. He is a gentle and friendly chap who has good relations with his colleagues at work. Oh, we're talking about Rondo. Helpful, for he could not be called to help colleagues. Good learners and good students out there, this again is a big thank you, of course, for watching. That also accounts very much, even as that this particular work is set out to achieve what is intended. And again, I just want to remind you quickly that in case you haven't subscribed, you don't want to miss these, and if literature is one thing that you're passionate about, then most likely this is one channel that I wouldn't want maybe to miss out. Stay tuned, and in fact, stay tuned. Cheers, until we meet next time round.